Good morning, everyone. First of all, we apologize for starting this show late today. Bitok is running a little bit late on account of an accident, but he is on his way and he soon take over the show. So we decided to start the show anyway. But before we go on, as tradition holds, we start with a word of prayer. And today we have Wakili KINUTHIA who will lead us in that. Wakili, karibu.
Let us pray. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Father, in Jesus' name, we thank you for this day. Thank you for the gift of life and for the blessings that you have bestowed upon us. We thank you for the show before us and for the nation that is Kenya. As we begin with us, continue with us, and end with us. We ask you to help us deliberate in a manner that will be fruitful and helpful for this nation. It is in Jesus' name we do pray, believing and trusting. Amen.
Thanks, Wakili. And we also like to appreciate our listeners from wherever they are. You can see Reborn, Chris, tuning in from Nandi, Kipkoech, Larry from Eldoret, tuning in from Eldoret. Thank you so much. We also have again Larry. We have got Joel, Arama saying good morning to you too. Kaki, Faith, same. Nita, Chesire, morning to you too. Good morning to all listeners. I can see people are tuning in from all over, as usual. But I think because Wakili KINUTHIA is fairly new in the show, we would like to welcome him and probably ask him, how was your week been, Wakili?
It's been an awesome week, a little bit slow.
Right.
We are being very careful because of the rising cases of COVID. So it's become a little bit slow, but we thank God. It's been a good week, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
See Kiplagat watching from Lelan, Elgeyo Marakwet. Pole Bitok, mpatiwa pole hapo, lakini anakuja hako njiani. So, but Wakili, let's reflect on the week in the interest of time. I'm sure we'll continue reading the comments. What has been the most spectacular thing for you this week?
I think the vetting of the judges,
right.
The vetting of the
Chief Justice.
Judges right now,
yes.
because they've not yet become Chief Justice, who want to become Chief Justice. And Kenyans are an interesting lot, because I see the person who has actually drawn more attention to them and who is speaking kind of to their hearts is Justice Marete. People are very excited about him. I do not know why. I was expecting that people would have a lot more to comment about Justice Martha Koome and the few other individuals who came appearing a lot more serious, a lot more cut out for the job. But it appears Marete, who is alleged to keep firing drivers and staying with some of them for 24 hours, is the most attractive candidate.
Apparently he doesn't also accept security.
And he doesn't accept security and he likes to drive. And he's actually said that his personal aide is his wife. So online, Marete appears to be drawing a lot more attention than anybody who came a lot more serious than him. But
what exactly are we looking for in a Chief Justice?
Okay, in my view as a lawyer, you see the Chief Justice is actually the president of the court. And the buck stops with him with everything that has got to do with the courts. So we are looking for someone who can make justice to be our shield and defender, not just on paper, but transform, and so that we actually start seeing justice becoming our shield and defender. I think in my view right now, what Kenya needs is a Chief Justice who will make the poor feel that justice is not just for those people who are rich, so that you are guilty until proven rich. That's why we see that the people in, for example, Parliament and a few other people easily get away with murder. They get away with anything. They can get away with a genocide just because they're influential and rich. We're looking for a Chief Justice who will make justice, like, fall like the rain, so that every Kenyan feels that they
but actually I hold a different perspective, and the way I see it, there seems to be this obsession and interest on who should be the Chief Justice. I have asked myself, actually, as a lawyer of so many years, what is the interest in having a Chief Justice of your choice? First of all, Chief Justice is just but a father figure of the judiciary. He doesn't control any finances. He cannot force, for example, a fellow Supreme Court judge to write a judgment that he wants. So what I find a bit peculiar is the manner in which the political class is interested in the kind of Chief Justice, a certain type of Chief Justice. Already you can see the speculation that everybody is saying that I think Ngate is a chosen Chief Justice. Some think it's AUKOT, but they're looking at other political consideration. I wish for me that people could just focus on the qualifications of a Chief Justice as they are outlined in the Constitution. and therefore get us the best. Marete, yes, is attracting a lot of interest online. I think because he's coming out as being comical. One thing that people do not know about Marete is that he had actually been fired, then got reinstated just last year. So it's quite interesting, the dynamics. But what amuses me the most intrigues me is this obsession with our kind of Chief Justice. But I think there's also another fact maybe we can actually discuss, which is that a lot of, I think, in the legal profession, you'll agree with me, a lot of very good, competent guys have not applied for this job. I wonder why.
I think it's very simple. Number one, you are being asked, you bought a house. It's worth X amount of money. How did you manage to buy that house? We have seen the panel going as far as asking you to submit bank accounts of your wife and to show us how your wife is getting her money. Now, if you have a strained marriage or a relationship that is not working, then it becomes even very difficult, because, I mean, we see so many people walking on the streets, but they barely talk as family. You see a husband who only talks to his wife when there are visitors in the house. So you're supposed to go and tell the same wife, we want your bank statement. I mean, there are so many people who have so many other private reasons, and I think one of them is finance. That people are not very comfortable with discussing their financial positions with the whole country, so that everybody gets to know you have 3 houses, you have 3 chicken, and so on and so forth. And that has made a great deal of very many qualified people not offer themselves because of the vetting procedure. But I must commend Kenya as a country, because I have not seen anywhere in the world where the interviews for the Chief Justice are this open and transparent and in the media and available for everybody to see. I mean, we look at our neighbors around here. You just hear so-and-so has become a Chief Justice. And in Kenya, we have done something that the world is looking at and saying, yeah, this is transparency 101.
Well, I think I mean, elsewhere in the world they do it. But I think what is annoying about our context is that the invasion into people's privacy, because people become too personal.
Yes,
you know, they look at. I remember when I was chairing the first selection panel of IEBC, and we actually even sought intelligence reports. But you can't believe the kind of intelligence reports that we got from our agency. It's about people's personal life, or so and so drinks in this bar, she has this girlfriend. It has nothing to do with the job. I don't have a problem with us looking into the integrity of individuals who will hold offices. It is important. Yes. We look into their integrity. But sometimes the search for this integrity is overstretched into people's very, very personal life. And that's why I feel many lawyers of great competence, many experience, have actually shied away from applying for this job, which is very, very, very key. But just to bring back the point I made earlier, you know, how do we prevent the political class from interfering in matters judiciary? Because that for Akili is a big issue. If you remember, for example, for the last almost 1.5 years, President Uhuru Kenyatta has refused to swear in the 40 judges. There were 41 initially, 1 passed on. What is the reason the president, for example, refused to swear those judges when they were interviewed by the same JSC right now, which is interviewing for Chief Justice? And remember, the president is represented in this JSC by the Attorney General.
Yes.
Then he also picks another civilian. I think he has two representatives from outside members of the public, and then the Attorney General. So for me, the question really is, even as we look for this Chief Justice today, it is important that Kenyans actually debate the extent to which the political class is interfering with matters judiciary. Because remember, under our constitution, these are a different arm of government. And that's why we are looking for a president and the head of the judiciary. But I still see the political arm trying to interfere in the affairs of the judiciary.
My take is this, and I say this with a lot of respect for the judiciary, that first and foremost, the judiciary itself is interfering with the executive.
How?
So they are interfering with one another. Because sometimes you fail to understand how, for example, somebody like Waititu would get court orders at night in a place, even get, like now it's gotten to the point where because of the 2010 constitution, you can get bail, anticipatory bail. And we have seen governors abuse that. We have seen a point where it gets to a point where the executive, for example, is trying to fight corruption. And the people who are being fought, the courts are the same ones that are protecting them. I think we need to get to the point where we say, no, it's not just about appointing 41 judges. It's about the integrity of these 41 judges. For example, I come from in Dagoretti, let me give you a living example.
Okay.
I come from Dagoretti here. There's a building that is a health risk to everybody. That thing had been designed to be 3 floors. It's standing at 8 floors. Yeah. A bank actually exited out of that building 4 years ago because there are enormous cracks in that building. That building is there courtesy of a court order. It is there because someone approached a judge and got a court order stopping every other government agency from bringing it down. But it's a building that could fall at night on any. In fact, every time it rains, we worry deeply that that building could come down on everything around it. And there are so many other shorter buildings around it. And this is the kind of judiciary that we need to protect ourselves from, where a judge can come and give a court order that is actually a risk to everybody else.
Let's be fair to the judiciary, and I'm not defending any errant judges and magistrates out there. I think that's a question of finding. If it is a particular judge that actually gave that order, what has stopped the people of Dagoretti, for example, from, say, petitioning the JSC and saying that we know Justice so-and-so, issued this order, is risking the lives of people. So this is individual. For me, what I don't like is the blanket condemnation of the judiciary. For example, when you go back to the question of integrity of these judges, so how did they pass the interviews at JSC? Why is the president refusing? Because the president should have questioned those judges. In fact, I like what Justice Chitembwe said in the interviews. He said, okay, is it all the 40 judges that have a problem, or is it a few? Right now, I feel that the executive is actually interfering with matters judiciary, because remember, the judiciary and our constitution is supposed to be independent. It's independent of the executive, just like the way the executive is independent of the other arms of government. So the fact that he's denying, actually, is for me the executive that is causing, for example, a backlog of cases. You can imagine some of those judges were specifically appointed to deal with matters land.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's for me is where I raise the red flag. You know, for example, if you look at the Ndumu Commission report on irregular and illegal allocation of land in this country, the number one thieves of land, public land in this country, are the political class, especially those in the executive, going downwards. And when these 41 judges were appointed at that time, one of the specific objectives was to deal on matters land. And I feel the executive does not want these judges to come on board, because then they will speed up matters to do with the irregularity and illegality of land allocation. So I would like us to be fair and say it's not the entire judiciary. Just like now to say corruption is a kawaida thing in Kenya. Are we all corrupt? Are we all thieves? let's cherry pick and say deal with those people who are actually corrupting the system. Let's deal with bad judges. Let's point them out, because that's why we have actually the JSC there.
Yeah. You know. Yeah. No, on that I agree with you. On that I agree with you. But we have a nation where everybody is interfering with everybody, and we need to get to the point where we realize that no matter how many laws we change, or no matter how transparently we try to choose people, unless and until we get to the point where we realize that it's upon us as individuals to change the way we think and the way we do things, it's not going to get anywhere. Yes. So
let's go to another issue. Why was Moses Kuria arrested?
we are yet to see the OB or whatever it is that was preferred, or whatever charges, because we didn't even get to. We just had his appearing in court, but we never got to know what. The charges were, I think, flaunting COVID-19 rules, which can be anything. I don't know why Moses Kuria was arrested.
Let me give you a theory.
Yes.
I understand this is not just about COVID-19 rules. It's about succession politics in Gatundu South.
Okay.
And it's about the positioning of some individuals to take over this government and to protect their interests. I will not mention names for now, but allegedly, there is a member of one of the ruling families who is interested in the Gatundu South, and therefore wants actually to be the next Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya. So the question, I'm told, is bring dirt on Moses Kuria, make him look dirty, create a criminal case against him so that he doesn't, because for you to be appointed a Prime Minister under this BBI, you have to be an elected member of Parliament. I don't know how true it is, but then again, this is Kenya. I don't think secrecy was ever invented in this country. Certainly not in our midst. But I'm told that's part of the choreography towards eliminating some political competition around that neighborhood. I don't know what your take is.
Awesome. But first and foremost, you cannot finish Moses Kuria by making him look dirty. Because dirty he already is. I mean, some of the things he says in public are profane. Sometimes he speaks and we wish we could give him some detergent to actually brush his mouth with it, because there are things that he should not say in public. So taking Moses Kuria to a prison does not make him less acceptable to the people, because he is already supposed to belong there. I think what the people of Gatundu South should be asking themselves is, have the women in Gatundu South given birth to more credible, more polished, more respectful, less demeaning leaders or young people, men and women who can be voted in as members of parliament for Gatundu South? And I don't think Gatundu South is short of such people. What this country needs to do is, let's stop gifting ourselves the wrong people. And there's an American who said that he's not afraid of thunder or rainstorm or hailstones or whatever. He's afraid of idiots. And the reason he's afraid of idiots is because there are too many, and once in a while they usually gift us one of their own as an MP. And he's thoroughly afraid because one day they'll gift us one of their own as president. So as a nation, we need to start moving from that level where we often behave like idiots because we are presented with very good choices, but we end up bequeathing upon ourselves the bad ones.
But okay,
and then we start
not to cut you short,
yeah.
But don't you think that has been the tradition in Kenya?
It has been the tradition.
Just look at, for example, the way there's a lot of choreography for succession. It's like Kenya is at a standstill when it comes to progressive politics. Because right now, the country is being defined in terms of, look at 2022, the country is being defined in terms of a few individuals, names. So really, will it then be fair to say, maybe we are also idiots in a way? Because our politics over a long period of time, for decades and decades, even including the mess we find ourselves right now, is actually because we have stagnated our political thinking to a few individuals. And I think maybe your analogy is also true of Kenya.
And I said it very clearly just a few seconds ago, that sometimes we are very brilliant people who allow ourselves to behave like idiots. Because you find us looking at very credible leaders who offer themselves, even at nomination level or even at election level. And we forget the good one and we opt for the bad one. And when the bad one is in office, we start complaining that Kenya is led by bad leaders. But they are there courtesy of ourselves. It is us to start saying, no, this thing ends here. This thing ends in 2022. And we start saying constituency after constituency, ward after ward, we are going to choose the most credible, the most respectful, the most decent, the most forward-looking leader, the most promising leader. Because then if we do that, we shall change the face of the country. But right now, we have the wrong people sitting in very high decision-making positions in this country.
And they're the ones putting us in the hole we are in right now.
Yes.
And we still are not moved by the fact that let's even resist. I mean, look at, for example, the Bbi, which is being pushed. First of all, it started with a lot of lies. And earlier on, I mean, and we'll come to this issue because I think I notice you're very passionate about it. So one of the things that is emerging going forward, 2022, is the question of qualifications to run for public office.
Yes.
From a legal perspective, I mean, let's put spanners into the works. First of all, it sounds discriminative because it almost goes against Article 38 of the Constitution on political rights. But at the same time, it's also reality in Kenya that we are not actually getting our best. And many times I've said in this show that it's about time we begin to question whether actually we are educated as a people or we just physically went to school. What's your feeling, Wakili, about this question of qualification that you must have a degree to be elected?
I will start by asking Kenyans a very simple question. And many of them usually answer me after they understand that. Number one, when we are choosing what you would call the least qualified person, and I think they are the highest qualified person, a house help in our house. In today's world, the first qualification we look for is a house help who can read and write. We are looking, in short, we want a house help who is educated. Because there are times you'd want to send them a message. If they're illiterate, they'll not read. There are times you want them to communicate to your child in English or Kiswahili. In fact, it's gotten to the point where parents have become so busy, you want a house help who is actually Form 4 because they can help your Standard 3, 4 child with homework. Basic mathematics and English and Kiswahili.
Yeah.
Now you ask them, if you walked into a hospital and you found a non-qualified nurse and a qualified nurse, and you're told that this nurse holds a PhD and there's a nurse who is just starting their learning, where will you bet your life on? You come to the hospital and you are told there's one doctor who just finished university yesterday, he can start his practicals with you. And then you're told there's Professor Wafula who has been practicing medicine for 43 years. Whom do you want to treat you? Most of the people will go for Professor Wafula. You live there and you go to any place. You want to hire a driver. You've just invested in a small Nissan March that you want to be an Uber. And you are told there's a driver who finished driving school last week and there's another one who's been driving for 15 years. You choose the one who's been driving for 15 years. But now when it comes to your billions, the billions of taxes of shillings that you've collected over the years, you are asked, there's a person who's been to school, he understands physical planning, he understands what a billion looks like, and so on and so forth. And then there's another one who cannot even read his oath of office. And you're supposed to choose one of them to go and manage your finances. Things change. You start choosing the most illiterate, the least educated, to go there and control. Look at MCAs, for example. Health is a devolved function. This is someone who determines how much a doctor is supposed to earn in their county. They are the people who are voting for these appropriations. Now then you go and choose a person who has actually never been to school to become the person who controls the monies that go to the doctors who have been to schools for very many years. And I think this is the double standard of Kenyans, that if I want to be treated in a hospital, I want the most qualified doctor. But when I am allowing someone to manage my billions, because this is our money in public coffers, then I choose the guy. I've had in a ward near home, there's a guy who roasts Metura who got to Standard 4. They are saying they want to make him MCA because he's very popular and he speaks very well to people around there. And I'm thinking, this guy has only managed coins. He's only managed 10 shillings, 20 shillings, 30 shillings, 50 shillings, and so on and so forth. And he's talking to people very well. When he goes to the county assembly, where every debate will be in English, unfortunately, and where they'll be talking of a billion, and then he'll see 9 zeros following a number, and he'll wonder how 9 zeros started following a number, because he has never seen such a figure in his life. I think education should not be a compromise. Let us reward people for education. For going.
No, but okay, let's flip this. Let's flip. That's one side of the coin. I totally appreciate the fact that yes, education helps, but see, it also being educated, not having certificates for me is not enough, because, and that's why I want us to flip this coin now. Let's look at the people who are in charge of this country. Some allegedly even studied abroad, went to high universities up there. But look at the mess the country. You see, for me, I see leadership like as a value. It's a value that must cascade downwards to the smallest person down there. Today, as we speak, our country is in about 8 trillion debt, 7.7 thereabout trillion debt, and it's being led by the President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is supposed to be what? Is it an economist or political scientist?
Yes.
He studied, and then he has a cabinet, a lot of ministers, professors, doctors. Then how do they let the country sink this low? Corruption.
You've come to where I love.
Corruption. President Uhuru himself admits that we lose 2 billion every day. Was it last year when he said it?
This year.
Yeah. 2 billion every day. Okay, now this is a person who knows how to count.
Yes.
How to count the billions.
Yes.
And I'm not saying we shouldn't look for education, but I'm also saying we have people who are educated in charge of our governments, in charge of our institutions, but these institutions are not working for Kenyans. Even you know that. Today, we have people who are in charge in this government. They can count a number of masks. They can count the number of vaccines, but they are not giving them to Kenyans. So education, I would say, isn't everything. We have also tried those people with education, but have really failed the country.
I'd love to come in, and I'd love to start from where you mentioned 8 trillion debt.
Yes.
I am very passionate about this.
Yeah.
And
because Wakili, let me just add a little bit more. You see, we have people, economists, they go to China.
Yeah.
They go, I don't know, to Europe. They go to IMF. In their negotiation of this debt, these are people who are knowledgeable. Why don't they factor the fact that if I borrow this money, what is the return on investment on Kenyans?
Yes.
Yeah, these are educated fellows.
Yes.
Yeah, and we have tried many of them. So I just want us to be fair, so that we don't look at the man who roasts mutura or mahindi, and if people think that he's a leader in his own right, we shouldn't really discriminate. But I'd like you to come on. What about this so-called educated individual who have really put us in a big mess today as we speak?
Okay. To start with, I'll actually start from the debt angle.
Okay.
The 8 trillion that people sentimentalize and talk about. And the first thing I would want to say is, in terms of world debt, that the world debt stands at 83% of the world's GDP. So that if we take the whole GDP of the world and combine it together, then divide by the number of countries, each country would have a debt of about 83%.
Okay.
So Kenya has not borrowed to the point of 83% of its GDP. Now, before we even get to countries...
What's our GDP at the moment?
I need to check that.
Okay.
I need to check that. But I know the percentages with relation to debt. Now, what I wanted to address was this. Which are some of the most indebted companies in the world? The first most indebted company in the world is Volkswagen. Volkswagen is the leading car manufacturer in the world. In fact, there's no company that produces more cars in a day than Volkswagen. You'll be amazed if you see them on YouTube. The second one is AT&T. The third one, interestingly, is Daimler, that makes Mercedes. It's the third most indebted company in the world. And they make the most sophisticated cars, the most, everything you can talk nice about Mercedes. Now, the fourth most indebted company in the world is Toyota. It's the fourth most indebted company in the world.
But
now, there's something I'm coming to.
You're also talking about successful economies.
There's something I'm coming to.
Let's come to Kenya.
No, those are just companies.
Yes.
Now, I was going to countries. The most indebted country in the world is Japan. At 266% of their GDP. Followed by countries like Italy at 118 and others like England at 105% of their GDP, and so on and so forth. Now, let us contrast that so that we put this into perspective. The least indebted country in the world is Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is the least indebted country in the world at about 2.36% of their GDP. Another one that is very little, that's got very little debt to itself, is Brunei Darussalam at 3.21%, and then Afghanistan at 7.8%.
Wakili, land in Kenya.
Follows therefore,
Kenya, boss.
No, you're coming to Kenya. There's something I'm coming to. It follows therefore in that sequence that let us look at Africa. The most indebted country in Africa is Egypt at 87% of their GDP, followed by South Africa at about 78% of their GDP. Kenya is at 66% of her GDP. The sentimental Rwanda that you people like comparing yourself to, the size of Isiolo, I don't know why you like comparing yourself to that one, stands at about 61% of their GDP. Now, contrast that with the countries that you want us to be like Tanzania, because they are not borrowing, that has got about 38% of debt as a proportion of their GDP. What I'm trying to say is that there's a direct relationship between those countries that have borrowed heavily and their level of success and growth in GDP. And there's a direct relationship also, those countries that have failed miserably and are doing horribly, like Nigeria, that has borrowed up to 32% of their GDP, and nobody wants to give them money, and they don't have electricity. And when you go there, generators...
I have a question, Wakili. I have a question. I like your knowledge on these debts, but to be honest with you, it's for me remotely connected to Kenya. You know why? Kenya is also the only country that borrows and steals. Do you know we steal about 700 billion of our money every year. In other words, actually we borrow and steal.
So borrowing is not bad, stealing is bad.
Yes, like you see, those countries you mentioned, they are indebted. I'll give you another. I've got a friend. He's Kenyan, former classmate of mine. He's Swede. He's now a Swede national. Do you know, they work hard in Sweden. I think they are taxed almost at about 70%. They don't mind. But you know what? Everything is free. You are guaranteed your education. Today, if my friend fell ill here in Kenya and doesn't want to be treated here, they will send for him an air ambulance. Now, countries could be indebted, but they also serve their people. Kenyatta Hospital, I mean, look, Jack Ma gave us free masks, and they were not even distributed. Some vaccine, I'm told, came into this country, were either donated or bought, but they went bad. So I think there is a problem when you compare Kenya and those other countries, because those countries are successful. If you talk about, for example, Volkswagen, Germany, I mean, Germany is one of the best economies, in a leading economy, actually, I think, in Europe and probably also in the world. Japan, the same thing. There is nothing wrong. I mean, I think the contrast for me should be, yes, let's borrow, but let's also invest wisely. If you look at, for example, the 350-something billion of SGR that we borrowed from China, you know, Akili, that was theft. The number one landowner in this country is actually Kenya Railways. And the difference between SGR and MTR is just the width. So why did we have to borrow so much money, billions, to buy lands when we already have land and we could still improve on it? So I think for me, those examples sounds very flowery and good. But in the context of Kenya, you know, like, I mean, again, I come back to the question of knowledge, education in leadership. We locked the 5 counties of Nairobi, Nakuru, Machakos, and others. But how come we're not applying our education and knowledge to say, okay, now that we've locked these countries because they are super spreaders of COVID-19, then let's at least do mass vaccination, mass testing, so that you're able to control this. So again, for me, education, whereas it's important, yeah, but I think, are we picking the rightly educated people in leadership? The answer for me, unfortunately, is no, we are not.
I'll tell you this. First and foremost, there's a huge challenge. There's a huge challenge in the sense that the bulk of those you call educated, very many of them, I can tell you, even CASs, have actually purchased the degrees they have. And this is the challenge we have. Education has a certain amount of, I think, discipline it imparts on you. For you to get to the point where you are called PhD holder, doctor, EKURU, AUKOT, there's a level of suffering you went through that actually changed you. It changed you because, I mean, getting a PhD is not easy. Now, unfortunately, we have so many people who are educated on paper because they have been able to buy degrees in India and all these other sorts of places, even JK, UAT, NKU, and so on and so forth. And some of those people are the ones that you are saying are educated. But the bulk of those who are genuinely educated, given a chance to do the right thing, usually do the right thing. And sometimes they are mismatched because someone had a bachelor of, like this guy who's, now look at our DP. His degree was in something, he's supposed to be in a lab. But now you see where he is. We
never saw him attend the class.
Yes, there's a lot of mismatch.
He was busy campaigning. I don't know when he did research.
Yes,
but anyway,
there's a lot of mismatch. And when you get someone who is supposed to be doing botanical stuff, doing political stuff,
supposed to be supposed to be lab based. But anyway, as we welcome Bitok, sorry sana Bitok, naona ulichelewa kidogo karibu.
Lakini I think this is what is called building capacity.
Yes, you have
been watching you guys and you're actually doing very well. In fact, I'm considering taking a 1-month leave.
As you take over, I wanted to just bring back into perspective. There is KINUTHIA who is actually saying, who elects the MCA? You know, one of the things, Wakili, we can keep on blaming these people we have given leadership. They're making the mistakes. But sometimes they say, and let's just be honest, these leaders is a reflection of who we are. Yeah, even that MCA, even that senator, governor, whatever, elected. They're elected by ourselves. I think there is just something that bites us when we see the ballot, and we forget those qualifications. But anyway, not to regurgitate on this issue as Bitok takes over the show now. Me, I always distinguish two things. Education is one thing, and book knowledge is the other. I think to a considerable extent, if you look at the people that are in leadership in our country today who are making the mistakes, that put the country where it is now, I think it's fair to say they went to school. They sat in classrooms, but I think they left uneducated. Vito, karibu.
Haya, Ekuru umefanya kazi safi. Asante sana. Thank you so much for standing in. In fact, naomba sana nichukue leave ya mwezi mzima. Ukuje uweze kuendeleza kazi. Thank you guys. I think you guys will be doing well. I've been watching you. I was trying to fix the mess that I had. Kidogo pia tutakla really apologize, poleni sana. Nimechelewa, nilikuwa na incident kidogo kwa barabara, lakini basi ndio mimi nimefika. Karibu sana Kinuthia.
Thank
This is your first time on the tackle.
Yes,
karibu. Yes. Sasa ndio baba wa Friday. Sheria Wiki ndio nimeona nakupeleka na mtaratara.
Yes.
Haya, naona Franco Petro as tuned in from Cape Town, South Africa. Thank you so much, the guys from Cape Town, South Africa. PK Kasrim is locked. Ole Netman, Grand Minds. Thank you so much, Ola Rama. Mareta is just an entertainment from a boring tedious week. David Kamau, good morning, Tackle. Wish everyone a blessed weekend. Rondo K, tuned in from Mwaja, Nairobi. Thank you, Jola Rama. I can see you. Robert Kobe, candid conversation. Thank you so much, RK. Good to see you. Good to see you. At least you back. Liki Sarah Chebres is tuned in. Nikomoto, Joel Rama, take the judge to task. Connie Cornelius, we need new news. Okay. PK Kasirim, President Uhuru Kenyatta once said he'll fix the judiciary. Maraga, maybe this move to block his swearing in of the judge is one of his ploys to fix the institution. Als Jones bin Klum, KINUTHIA is on the fishing expedition in finding faults in judiciary. We know clearly which interfering. Okay. Jane Mumbi didn't know we can petition JSC. Joel Rama says, nice to see you on this show. Nice to see Al bin Klum. Okay. Joel Rama says, yes, you can. Okay. PK Kasrim. PK Kasrim says, Ben KINUTHIA isn't liberal-minded. He is somehow pro-government. Tony Koesungorisiek watching live from the city. Thank you, Canada Kijuju. From Embu. Thank you, S. John Klum. MCA TC must have a degree. Integrity test, do we really apply? And is it reflective in what we elect KINUTHIA? Kibuta Koir, don't blame the messengers who elect MCAs. It's you, boss, to blame yourself. So, okay. Some sharp guy, but remote control. God bless, perhaps. Jackson Samoe, Singwe, watching from my bench. Great, good to see you. S. John Klum. Please KINUTHIA, don't justify looting. Think quality of life and return on investment. Ben Musumbi, personally I wish we could stop glorifying the issue of debt. Ben KINUTHIA, don't forget most of the countries with high level of debt are 1. are net exporters. 2. they borrow in local currency. 3. every coin borrowed counts for true development. 4. have a greater HDI, and HDI is more real than GDP. Lucia says, watching you from Washington State. Good to see you. Thank you so much, Lucia. Shadow Mandago, this KINUTHIA is like speaking for deep state. Good morning, everyone. Nasir Bramwell Nasho, Dr. EKURU, well spoken. Oben Musumbi. Haya, wakili Wamwili Pickpack. Wakili is a wizard of doom. How do you justify rudderless, clueless intellectual taking havoc to our economy? Samuel Ndungu, wakili, I respectfully disagree on education. Visual integrity is more important. Robert Ndegwa, Robert from Atlanta. Good to see you, Robert. Robert Ndegwa, salimia Dr. AUKOT and tell him we need him to fix this mess in Kenya. Kidome Mtwiri, Kidome Justin from Baragoi Fire. Asante sana Ambrose Rono. The show is out. Keep it burning, guys. Thank you. Solid. E. Andre say I to my senior Dr. EKURU, watching from Nangengere Kapedo. Ole Netman, Dr. EKURU is sharp and well versed with his content. There is no way we can justify borrowing that our GDP is okay and comparing ourselves with Japan that manufactures everything. The price of paying corruption is so punitive in Japan, and it does is so punitive in Japan, and it does not favor anyone, including the people at the highest office. When you come to Africa and Kenya, say it's that we reward the corrupt with the highest office. Shindwe. Kipchumba Kibwambo says, nice to see EKURU on polo. It looks like he's ditching the suit. It's a Friday, man. It's Friday down here. Cheriat clear for a sensible show as always. Thank you. Najua ni watu wa Australia mahali tulisema tunaenda. So anyway, I don't know how far you guys were with this, but I got the conversation on debt. And there had been a story on GDP and all these other things. When you talk about the figures, the economy is growing, all these other stories and this. Who is it growing for? You know, because I think we had a conversation the day before yesterday, and we are asking callers to tell us what they are feeling, how the economy is feeling for them. And when you think about the number 7% growing, the question is, who does it grow for? The cost of fuel is high. We have the other day we had a research that came out that Kenyans in Nairobi have 1 meal a day. Cost of living is getting up. We are having people who are not going to work. When you talk about the economy growing, Ben KINUTHIA, before I come back to AUKOT, because that's why I got in, who is it growing for?
Okay, to start with, I wouldn't say that the economy is necessarily growing for the pockets of the people who are looking at it and watching it. But when you have better roads, when you have better infrastructure, when you are able to move from point A to point B a lot faster than you did yesterday, I have just used Ngong Road. And I can tell you I've lived on Ngong Road all my life. And 5 years ago, Ngong Road was a nightmare. It would have taken me twice as long to get here. I have saved on fuel. The cost of fuel may have gone up. It's unfortunate. But I have saved on fuel because the amount of fuel I used to use between home and this place is significantly changed when Ngong Road was expanded. And this is happening across the country. Sometimes we tend to think that economic growth is when you wake up and there was 10 shillings in your pocket and it is less. I used to, and because I've been a hustler, I've done so many things. I used to go to Mombasa and I once rolled in a bus. From Nairobi to Mombasa used to cost me then about 1,500 shillings on a bus. Today I am doing it for 1,000 shillings on the SGR. I may not feel that the economy is growing, but what has happened is technically I have saved 500 shillings. If there is 1,500 Kenyans on that train, it means we have collectively saved 1.5 million in one trip.
But the question is, Ben,
So
at what
the thing
cost?
is
Talk about
that-
SGR, for
Yes,
instance. It continues
yes.
to make losses. I mean, it's not making an economic sense. And in fact, you're looking like countries like Tanzania and Uganda, they are rerouting their economic roadmap. Tanzania, for instance, is connecting through Uganda. So by default, because of that port, then Rwanda and Congo will technically connect to Uganda and Tanzania. Where does it leave Kenya? Our SGR is stuck in Suswa. Now we're talking about I was hearing EKURU talking about rehabilitating the meter gauge railway. Now we've moved from the SGR. Now we're talking about rehabilitating the meter gauge railway, which, in my opinion, was it what you should have done? Because we are talking about all these things, but at what cost? At what cost to the Mwananchi? The pain that goes to the Mwanjiku. At what cost does this thing come with?
I agree with you.
Because it's good to speak. It's so beautiful to say about Mongong Road. Yes, it looks nice. It's so nice to talk about billions that you're saying we build an SGR. Very beautiful conversations. But the question is, what is the pain at the pocket
I
of
have
Mwananchi?
always wanted to answer this question this way because sometimes when you see some things happening, you have to ask yourself, what is happening in the world? There is no profitable railway in the world. Name one. In the UK, the railway is supported by the government. In France, I have not seen a railway in the world that is profitable.
Okay.
These things are supposed to be run by government for the benefit of Mwananchi. In fact, even most national airways are run by governments, and that's why they have the country's name on them, because they are not profitable per se. If they were to be profitable, they would be too expensive for Mwananchi. Having said that, yes, there should have been a decision initially to first improve on the existing infrastructure. For example, I see the people of Kibra walk to work every day, and there's a lot of railway lines lying idle in the industrial area. So there should have been a deliberate effort to make sure that the railway that comes from Kikuyu does pick people at Kibra and drop them right inside the industrial area because the rails are there. But again, the question is, whose responsibility was it? Some of the leaders you see in government today and some of the people who are making noise about changing this country with Hasna narratives and so many kinds of things have not come up with any suggestion or any bill or any legislative kind of suggestion to improve the lives of Kenyans. Or for example, if Uhuru comes and says we want to do SGR, we never saw any of the people opposing him saying, wait a minute, before we do SGR, can we vote in parliament for resources?
But there was never a chance, Wakili. Let's be fair.
There's always a
There was
chance.
never
Like
a
right
chance.
now, let me give you a living
For example, the IMF money. Why wasn't public participation an issue? Yet it is in the constitution. You know, these people sneak in out
But
of
you're
the country.
participating on Facebook.
These people.
Is that a plan?
No, Wakili, let's be very sincere.
yes,
By the way,
yes.
in this show here, we not talk brutally honest. Because the idea is to help the country move
yes.
forward and have a proper conversation. Now, I want to make 2 points before I come to that. The first one you made earlier, you know, expanding roads is a beautiful thing, but there also has to be growth. I mean, I'm not an economist. I don't know. Maybe you know, you have better knowledge of economy than I do. But I know that you can invest, but you must also grow. Today, why would anybody go and, for example, industrialize in northern Kenya? You know, most industries will tell you, well, security is an issue, power generation and distribution is an issue, because that's how you can create jobs and that's how you can put more money into people's pockets. If I'm going to go into my savings and say, spend the 1,000 you say to take an SGR to Mombasa, and by the way, you're not even entirely true, Akili. You can say 500. You know, the SGR takes you to Miritini From Miritini to Mombasa, assuming you want to transact your biashara, say in Likoni or wherever, you have to expend more money. So actually it doesn't help you.
I take a matatu at 100 bob.
Exactly, but it's still moving around.
Yeah.
Now, if you wanted to really make sense of this SGR, as it is in other countries, you go to a city like, say, New York, there is a central station. You go to a place like, say, London, whatever. So you centralize, you make it easy for people to use the service. Saizi wakili ati mimi nataka kwenda SGR hapa, I live sijui Kilimani, I have to go to Syokimau. Look at just the logistics.
No, nowadays, let
it
me
does
just
not
help
make
you.
sense.
Nowadays, you go to railway station, you pay 50 shillings for a train, it leaves you at SGR.
Okay, fine, fair enough. But I think for me the connection I wanted to make is this: is one thing to borrow, but let's also invest with a view to growing our economy. Right now, our own president and the government have admitted, even the Auditor General reports are very clear. We are stealing what we are borrowing. So meaning we are actually not investing, and therefore we are not actually helping Kenyans grow. So Kenyans are not making money. Kenyans are actually becoming poorer and poorer. Today, the fact that people go into their savings, and spend that money, even if you take a train for 1,000, but you are eating onto your investment, your savings, that's not growing an economy. And the truth for the matter is, let's just be honest, our economy is at the high CU. It's not growing at all. People have lost businesses in this country. I mean, by last year, we are talking about 7 million small businesses that were lost. Today, even me from my legal profession, I can tell you, I know of even colleagues who have closed offices. Practice is not lucrative anymore. So how can we say this economy is growing? It's not growing at all. Even with all the billions. In fact, the question we should be answering, where are these billions going? But maybe we shouldn't even answer, because the president himself has admitted 2 billion is lost every day. In fact, if you do the maths, Wakili, 2 billion every day. I don't know I don't know what period we can allocate, so that we know exactly how much have we lost.
Per year, maybe you can do 12 months.
What the president may have failed in telling us is exactly how this 2 billion is lost and what is being done to make sure that we are not losing this 2 billion. And I can tell you a few things for a fact. Number one, are we trying to stem the loss of these 2 billion shillings in a day? You are a wakili, and you know that for a matter to get to court and completely be expedited with, it starts with the police station. From how an OB is written, to how a charge sheet is drawn, to how prosecution is done, to how the evidence is presented in court, and all the way to entering a judgment. Now, actually the three arms of government need to play their role in stemming the loss of 2 billion shillings in a day. What has the executive done? We must give credit where it's due. Number one, the police has really changed. If you look at the investigative arms, the DCI today, it's not the DCI we used to know. There's a lot of capacity building. Yes, there's a lot of capacity building that has gone in there. If you look at the prosecutorial arm, some of my classmates at Catholic University today are sitting at DCI in very comfortable offices, and they are doing quite something. So the prosecutorial arm has changed a lot. That there's a lot of credible and sensible prosecution that is happening, as opposed to days when the policeman was, a police inspector was the guy heading the prosecution. Now,
and by the way, some of them were very good. I can tell you, someone like DCI Kinoti was a fantastic prosecutor.
Yes,
Kinoti used to nail guys when he was a prosecutor back in the days. Well, today, to be honest, Wakili, I don't know how often you go to court, but I go to court.
Don't go there.
Okay, you don't go there, but I have some.
I spend my time doing alternative dispute resolution, but this is what I was coming to. This is what I was coming to. What I was coming to is that the executive has shown some degree of trying to unlock this mess that we are in, that is called corruption. Now, when it moves to the next step, which is parliament, who are busy getting 10,000 shillings in toilets and so on and so forth, they have so many committees that sit and grill these people and gather evidence that is supposed to be presented before court. But wait a minute.
Be honest.
How many of them have offered?
Give me even 2 examples of success stories where the executives actually tamed corruption.
Okay, this is not what I was coming. What I'm trying to explain to you is this. When the DCI does the investigation, you provided a proper investigative arm and they come up with a solid file. And then after that, the prosecutorial arm comes and does a very good prosecution, headed by Haji. They are doing very well. But it gets to a judge who actually gives unbelievable court orders. I mean, how many people are we seeing who are actually supposed to be behind bars but are walking free because of the judiciary? And this is where we need to deal with that. If the executive arm of the government has tried to do something, what has the judiciary tried? They don't even feel ashamed coming and asking for more money, while we see them releasing criminals left, right, and center. And sometimes it's not even on the basis of evidence. I mean, there are matters right now that are sub judice I wouldn't want to say so much about. But those matters have not been dealt with appropriately because we have judges who are corrupt. And we have a judiciary. Maraga sat at the presidency of the court when we for the first time saw a murder suspect getting bail terms to pay in installments. Where has that happened in the world? And he comes saying he's one of the best chief justices we had. He has presided over one of the worst and the least. I mean, if there is a weak link in our fight against corruption, it's the judiciary.
Not the executive that admits we are losing 2 billion every day.
Now, the executive admits we are losing 2 billion every day.
Let me tell you why.
They give you a good prosecution, they give you a good case, and then what does the judge do? He relates on it.
I'm not holding brief for the judiciary. I know for sure there are certain bad judicial officers.
The bulk of them.
I don't know about it. It's a question of evidence. I would not blanketly condemn anyone. But let me tell you, I'm actually shocked. If you read the last Auditor General report, by the way, Wakili, the last Auditor General report, of all the 22 departments of government, especially under the executive, they are all thieves in equal measure.
Yes.
Now, how is that a problem of the judiciary? You know, we should have seen the executive, for example. I'll give you a simple example. If your employee today misappropriated money from your firm, from your office, will you keep them?
No, you dismiss
You'll
them.
fire them, right?
Yes.
You'll even report them to the police.
Yes.
So how come the executive, this executive arm of government, could receive an Auditor General report that shows all the 22 departments of government have stolen money, money has been lost? Even the president comes and admits. How come we're not seeing him firing ministers, PSS, directors, left, center, and right?
But is there a Kenyan who's been fired and not moved to court?
How is that a question of the judiciary? Because if I appoint you, at least let's see some action. We should see some action from, say, the executive to say, okay, you've lost money. The same way, you know, in my private business company, my staff are steals. I'll fire them. The next thing I'll call the police on them.
Dr. EKURU, I don't think you live in this country.
I do.
Because, for example, there was the Minister for Finance, Rotich.
Yes.
He's facing court cases for corruption.
KINUTHIA.
And then there are so many. There are so many even PSs who are facing cases of corruption. And with the executive ends there. You have been accused of corruption. We have stopped you. We have offered you. No, we have offered you to the courts. Now, if the courts don't do their part, what do you want the president?
But again, also EKURU, as we join, so that we can move to Sheria. So that we can move to Sheria. There's you mentioned something. You've talked about what the executive is doing in forwarding criminals to the court. But there are some serious levels of double standards. Look at KEMSA. The chairman for KEMSA. Is it called Kambi or something? Kambi Kidura. He is accused, he has been grilled in parliament, he has been kicked out of KEMSA, the president appoints him as the chairman of Communication Authority. Look at the treasury that you're talking about. Rotich today is being put under fire. The accounting officer, Thuge, is now a witness against him. The man who approves money, who accounts for the ministry, is now a witness against it. We've seen also the fights between DCI and DPP in courts and all that. There's a time it came out very ugly. And I think we have to agree with something, KINUTHIA, that the systems in this country have failed us as citizens. It's not about the courts, it's not about the executive. The whole system is rotten. And when you look at the way, when you hear what Maraga said, you're a lawyer. You're a consumer of justice and consumer of constitution and the rule of law. When you heard about how Maraga was speaking about his frustrations in running the judiciary, somehow you'll get a glimpse into what goes on behind the corridors of justice. But anyway, that besides the point, I think we need to agree that executive, the whole system is rotten from the head, from the president, all the way. I remember when the president was giving his speech in Mombasa some times back, akasema no stone. When you hear anybody saying no stone will be left unturned, know that all the stones are not going to be turned. He said kitaumana, sema watu watafungwa, all those stories and all that. So I think there's a bigger disconnect in the way the executive has run the campaign against corruption. We have EACC, which I think should be disbanded. You know, as it stands,
I've said it many times. We talk. Me, I don't see the purpose of EACC. My proposal is simple: strengthen the DCI arm and DPP, create special departments, and then we should stop calling theft of public money corruption. There's nothing called corruption in our mother tongues. Ni wizi. Corruption ni wizi. Ufisadi ni wizi. Hakuna. And our laws are very clear. The criminal procedure code, the penal code is very clear that, if you steal, you are charged and you are prosecuted ordinarily. You see what the executive has done, and this is why for me, I will still not blame the judiciary. If you are in charge of a department, at least let's see some action from your end. No.
Okay.
Every year, I should be expecting, for example, the president firing people left, center, and right for failure to account for money. Even before I go to the judiciary, that's the responsibility of the executive. They should start there. But also, I think now as Kenyans, let's stop calling this theft corruption. There's nothing called corruption.
Haya, sijui kama mlikuwa mmeguzia mambo ya judiciary ya CJ, Chief Justice. Yes. Yesterday we are subject to a comic relief by Matere. And I think the bigger question is, when you look at the way those interviews are being run, I think we are just being subjected to an entertainment gallery. There seems to have been a decision that has been made. I could be wrong. Because when you look at it, if you are a very keen citizen, there is a way you would expect those conversations to be running. But if it's not about personal things, it's about very mundane conversations that are running there. I don't know what you guys make of it. But anyway, also bunge iko wazi. Unaweza piga simu 779-800-010 au 779-800-010 au 779-800-010. Bunge la mwananchi iko wazi. Unaweza piga simu ili uweze kuchangia. Naona Rama amejaribu kututafuta lakini nasubiri taona simu yake. Okot, what do you make of that?
We started by that issue talk and one of the things that actually I want Kenyans to engage even going forward, because these interviews are not over, is to keenly watch why is the executive or the political class interested in a certain chief justice, because that's the unseen choreography. And we already hear rumors that so and so is earmarked. I even saw, I think Senator Ledama Olekina just say, stop wasting our time. Ambia Tungati and new suits anza ku practice his tenure. Things like those. So there is a lot of overtures and interest on this chief justice. And yet, if you look at actually the workings of the judiciary, the Chief Justice does not control any single judge or any single magistrate. He cannot come to a magistrate and say, I want you to write this kind of judgment. And I think this is where, for me, my point of departure from Wakili KINUTHIA was that it's one thing to blame a judge or a magistrate. But do we also care about how the cases is being presented? And I'm not saying there aren't bad or corrupt judicial officers. Just like there are corrupt executives, there are corrupt parliamentarians, there are corrupt Kenyans, they are all over there. I think this is just our middle name, corrupt society. But I think for me, when we blanketly condemn the judiciary, I differ, because I would say the judges and magistrates decide based upon the evidence they are given. And it's not excusing some of them who will twist. I don't know whether you remember the radical surgery of the judiciary that was led by Justice Ringera. Yeah. In one of his findings, you know what he came up with? He said that Kenyans were saying, if you can buy a judge, why hire a lawyer?
It's cheaper to
back in the days. And it's true. And I'm told there are some judges, magistrates who will come with 2 rulings or 2 judgments.
So, I think tuko na jamaa kutoka Georgia ako kwenye simu. Jambo
bwana Bitok.
Habari ya jioni. Najua kule ni jioni.
Huku ni usiku wa manane hapa.
Pole. Umepota sana kaka. Jambo. Huyu ni mtu wako wa huko Baringo.
Sasa mimi niko na huyu jamaa huyu, wacha na huyu AUKOT, hiyo mwingine huyo jamaa.
KINUTHIA.
KINUTHIA, I think he is new in Jerusalem.
He's a visitor in Jerusalem.
Why do you say so, brother?
Because I think you are not in touch with the reality when you talk about the prosecution cases and all what have you. Because there are some cases and which everybody who even has not gone to school can tell you that justice is not served there in Kenya. Because when you blame the judiciary and the judges, what are you talking about? The corruption starts at the police station, and you know it. And these things have been talked about, and I think you need to get your facts right and come back to the reality of the Kenya that we are in. It's so corrupt that mtu anachikwa. Like the other case that happened to this young man who was held because I think he was held because of some laptop or some t-shirt printing machine.
The one who was said to have been found with stolen items.
Yes, the cop was asking for 30,000 just to release the boy.
Mm-hmm.
And the law of Kenya says within 24 hours you have to present it in a court of law.
Mm-hmm. We also had a case in Eldoret. You remember we ran a campaign, I think a month ago, of a student.
Yes.
Who was supposed to sit for his KCSE, but was in prison for selling changa.
Yes, man. Don't be so new in Jerusalem. I think go to the facts and read the papers. Don't apply too much wisdom out of nothing. Just look at the small things that are happening around you. Because the small things are the ones that compound to bigger things. Because before the case reaches to the judiciary, there is so much that happened in between.
I think I like your sentiments. And one of the things I need to tell you, one of the things that we really fought for in the 2010 Constitution, which Dr. here bequeathed unto us, was the independence of the police. We really wanted a police force that is not being ran left, right, and center. Now, this falls squarely within the police force. I mean, Mutiambai and his people have got the powers to summon those corrupt police officers and actually fire them or do something about it. And when the judiciary comes, and I can tell you, if the president today came and pronounced himself on that, you'll hear people saying he's interfering with the police. I think it's incumbent upon the people who are senior within the police force to immediately embark on these people. There's the Independent Police Oversight Authority, IPOA. And I think Kenyans have been given an opportunity by the Constitution to actually go and petition IPOA and complain and say, wait a minute, there's a police who has done A, B, C, D, E, F, and we have a complaint against them. And yes, these people will be suspended for some time. Investigations will take place. And if the right procedure is followed, these people are supposed to be dismissed. So let us not speak as if we are helpless. We are not helpless. There is a power. And even the police commissioner himself and the people under him have got the powers to actually suspend these people and give an opportunity for a case to be had against them. So we are not helpless. The law has provided an opportunity for us to be able to deal with such errant policemen, and nobody should support and nobody should stand with such people.
No, he's still on call.
You know, there is something which goes on around Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
Afadhali unapatana na mkora kuliko upatana na polisi.
Eri Mugondi.
Sababu ni moja. I've been a victim. I'm coming from work. I used to work in a supermarket back in the day. Lakini unajua kulikuwa na hii mogidi ya saa 4 usiku. Unarudi nyuma mkiana pesa because karao atakusakanya kila kitu kwa mfuko.
Lakini nasikia pia kuna
sasa baba umwambie baba mimi niko na hii baba ndio natoka job. Anakuwa and he doesn't do any harm to you because he is still hustling like you are. Lakini polisi wala wako sahi baba. Hakuna vile unaweza.
Lakini nasikia kuna wakoro wengine pia wanakuchapa kidogo wakipata una ya kutosha na kuambia beba ya kutosha next time.
Wajua afadhali upigwe na mkora, unajua ni mkora amekupiga kuliko yule upigwe na yule anastahili kukulinda. What are you talking about? Ekura ukoti might be familiar with some of these things because of where he grew up,
Yes.
And Ekura ukoti is very realistic because Kenya has told the truth.
Mm.
And we know the truth. It's just that because right now if you look at because I'll take back a few years ago. Mm-hmm. If you look back in the politics of the 1990s, they were about issues. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. But the politics of today is about the seat.
Mm.
Even whatever is happening right now about the Chief Justice, we know. I mean, it's just, I will not say shenanigan because it's a process that has to be done. It's a constitutional process. But by the end of the day, you'll be surprised that people don't get it wrong. Okay. Whoever is being rumored around, the people will not, the fruit does not fall away from the tree. It just falls down there, Okay. These things will happen. But what can we do? We are just helpless Kenyans. And I'm telling you, it's not going to change anytime soon.
Thank you so much, my brother. At least you're in Georgia, so we thank God at least. Well, unaweza kikumana huku, you can continue with our generations. Asante sana. Thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate. Wewe unaona uchumi imekuwa, unasikia uchumi kwa mfuko wako, kama ukota kwa maneno nataka kukuambia ameshaenda. Haya. Nani alikuwa mpota hapa kidogo, Arama ndio alipiga simu na akapotea. Acha nitasubiri nitaona simu yake. Haya, sijui nisome comments alafu tukirudi tuje tuangalie Okay, Arama tayari ameshafika. Jambo Arama. Arama, good evening.
Good evening, Bwana Gerald.
Jambo, how are you?
Sasa hii ni asubuhi. Yeah. First of all, Bwana Gerald, wacha nikaribishe huyu mheshimiwa anaitwa KINUTHIA. Wa KINUTHIA.
Yeah. Niko
no. This is called the tackle.
Yeah?
This is called the tackle. Let me tackle.
Yes, please.
He wants to tackle you.
Proceed, tackle him.
Yes, I'm very surprised with some statements you have made, and I had to get out of my bed and come to my office so I can call it.
Ndio sikia vizuri.
How can you say that the judges are failing in their job? You are a lawyer. Mimi sijasikia anywhere KINUTHIA has gone to the JSC or anywhere else to file a complaint against any judges. I've not seen. I read the news religiously. I've not heard anything. That's number one. Number two,
you're breaking
the evidence presented and the statute and the...
We cannot get you very clearly, Arama. You're breaking. Hello?
All right, sorry. It looks like the connection is going in and out. So I was saying, yes, the judges cannot, for example, if the statute says you cannot be jailed for more than 5 years, the judge cannot jail you for 10 years.
That's true.
If the statute says that for this type of offense, when you're found guilty, the maximum you can be fined is 100,000. The judge cannot fine you 2 million. We have to go and change the statute to fit the current crimes that are happening. Maybe 100,000 was a lot of money in 1970 or 1960 or 1940. But right now, 100,000 is a pocket change. So we need to go back and change the laws. Now, the other thing that you have talked about is the police. My friend, I don't know whether do we read the same news? The president orders the police to do something. The interior minister orders the police to do something. The police is not independent anywhere by all measures, anywhere in the country. Look at it. When you are perceived to be against the current government, the police is unleashed to beat you, chase you around, and do everything. Remember when it was just the other day. It was just the other day that Raila was a pain in the neck to the government. Watu walikuwa na chapo tear gas kila mahali. Moses Kuria was the one who was saying that tumenunua tear gas mingi. Little did he know the same tear gas is being turned against him once he saw the light. Jamani, Bwana KINUTHIA, this is your first time coming to the tackle, but please, when you come here, kuja na mambo ya ukweli. Hapa tunaongea ukweli. You have your opinion and I respect your opinion and I will always respect what you have to say. But please, let's speak from a point of truth. You have some very good points and there are some things that you've talked I agree with. And I say, you know what, he has a point. I have to give you that. But I was very disappointed, especially you in the legal profession, giving a blanket accusation or a blanket judgment against the judiciary when you know very well there are some things they cannot go contra based on their on what the law says. So those are the things that, Jameni, we are here to educate each other. We are here to educate our fellow Kenyans. But can we do it in a way that mtu asitoke hapa akifikiria kwamba, oh, this judiciary is just useless. Yes, there are some corrupt judges. I will tell you right now. I know that for sure. And Mr. AUKOT amekubaliana. They are very corrupt judges. We know that. And there are people who have made, even for me, I don't understand why somebody has to go and get the so-called anticipatory bond usiku wa manane. Mimi nilifikiri tu watu wa usiku wa manane ni wale members wa Night Runners Club. Sasa hawa wanaenda kuchukua vitu usiku wa manane. I don't understand that. So these are the things that we need to look at, and we need to have an even better process of challenging these judges who issue such orders, like what you said about the building. jameni, Kinuthia hata wewe saizi si ungekuwa umefaili hiyo kesi usaidie watu wa kwenu bwana. Sasa wewe unataka nani aende kufaili hiyo complaint?
I'll get to that. I'll tell you when I'm responding.
Good tackle.
What a tackle.
Kama ni pesa weka pay bill number tutachanga bwana. Jameni, you know, I don't come and fundraise to bury somebody because somebody did not take care of a building.
Okay.
Rather we take changa, we tear down that building right now before it kills somebody.
Sasa asante Arama. Acha tusikie jambo.
Bwana Gerald Bitok.
Good morning sir, how are you?
Very well sir, how are you?
Salama sana Deno, mambo?
Salama sana. Nipitishie salamu hapo kwa mkurugenzi presidential candidate Bwana AUKOT.
Nimeshukuru sana boss.
Yeah, how are you doing sir?
I'm very well, very well. I hope you are keeping safe bana. This new wave of COVID.
I am. Just actually recovered from it.
Oh, pole sana.
Yeah, the Lord is merciful.
Thanks man, that's great.
Salimia pia ni ukama hapo Bwana Kinuthia.
Amesalimika. You people are very welcoming, asante.
Nimeona ameingia Hamdwe kidogo.
Wewe unaonaje mambo? Umesikiza?
Nimesikiza.
What are your thoughts?
Very useful conversation. Allow me to just do my kidogo contribution.
Please.
As a player within the criminal justice system, sometimes it's very hard to separate police reforms and look at the police within the context of the new constitution, the doctrine of separation of powers and all. And also look at the current picture or the current optics within the judiciary. The entire matrix was supposed to reform the criminal justice system in a nation where justice was the privilege of a few, and we had a backlog of justice being served. And also where the true metric of justice, that somebody would truly, get what it is that they deserve, was not properly established. And I think the unfortunate thing is that when you look at our constitution, is that we have a constitution that is good on paper, but we don't have constitutionalism.
We are lacking in the spirit.
Even the letter. There's no constitutionalism. What is written down on the constitution has never been met, has never been effected, has never been established or adjudicated. There is absolutely even the constitution itself has not been properly prosecuted. It has not been properly implemented. So it's very hard to refer matters and compare what is happening with the constitution and even cite the current constitution. And also it's very hard to have a proper criminal justice where the government itself is being called out as a criminal, you know, at the end of the day. My friend Kinuthia, if he still practices, he will know very well that there has been the desecration of the separation of powers because of the lack of constitutionalism. We know that police reforms are not there today because the spirit of political goodwill is lacking. The truth is that because the police is being used as a political arm, and that is what we wanted to shy away from and move away from, you know. And at the end of the day, I think even the writers of the Constitution, we need to move away and look at how can we create buffer zones where we don't have the executive meddling in everything and overstepping their mandate. I think the appointment of the AG will need to be looked upon in terms of how is it done. I think in terms of his even expansion of his term, because I tend to feel that 4 years is too little. And I think we need to look at improvement here and there where we can do to strengthen the current criminal justice, especially make sure that we effect police reforms. When you look at the judiciary, even when you look at the current interviews, you see that it is more of a formality than a constitutional obligation. You understand?
Yes.
You think that you're going to a match that is already preset at the end of the day. When you look at how the former Chief Justice was treated, do you think there's going to be any integrity in terms of the choice of the Chief Justice that we're going to be given? No. At the end of the day, we are going to get a puppet who plays into the game and into the winds and into the lights and into the joys of the current establishment at the end of the day. You understand?
Yes.
So we live in a nation where it is a lawless nation. It is a bandit nation. Whatever it is, if you look at the respect of court orders, if you look at the respect of our judicial system, if you look at the fact that the justice and the judicial arm in this country has been denied the proper latitude, because the executive is not more senior than the judiciary. Neither is the executive more senior than the police force. Neither is the executive more senior than parliament. But at the end of the day, the executive has postulated itself as the kingpin and as a mortal king, whereby they do their will as they please.
Okay.
So what kind of nation are we living in? We are living in a nation where it's a lawless nation. We live under the winds of men. Whatever that is prosecuted with the attitude of mtadunini. Even ask my brother there, EKURU, utafanya nini? You know,
Utadu.
At the end of the day,
Asante sana. Thank you so much, my brother.
We have the, so it's the frustrations are beyond us.
Okay.
You know, at the end of the day, we are waiting for God to help us.
Okay.
It sounds like we are helpless.
But then it's before God helps us, See,
God is going to help us.
No, but before God helps us, si tujisaidie kwanza.
Sasa ndugu yangu, unajua saa zingine kama hakuna choo unajisaidia katika kwa njia. Sasa wewe unatuambia if I have an urge nataka kwenda kwa choo na hakuna choo, wewe unaniambia kwanza nijenge choo. You know, kama
lazima ujenge choo. Unajua Waswahili wanasema kama Mungu alishikamana.
Tuingie kwa kichaka sasa. Haya, tuingie kwa kichaka.
Tunasimame kwa kichaka kwanza. Sasa tunasimama kwa kichaka kama Kenya kwanza. Sasa unajua siwezi sema wacha nijenge choo, wacha nijikaze na sina pesa ya kujenga choo.
Haya, kuna watu walisema simamisha nchi tushuke. So labda inafika mahali tu usimamishe kidogo tushuke. Asante sana. Thank you so much, Dennis. Haya, umesema you are completing the journey. Hapo sio bana, karibu next week.
Haya, asante
sana kaka. Alright. Jambo, good morning. Good morning bunge la mwananchi. Jambo, bunge la mwananchi, jambo. Good morning.
Good morning, Gerard.
Good morning to you. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Nazungumza na nani?
Kwanza shukrani. Mimi naitwa Obed.
Obed, jambo.
Jambo. Very good talk and just straight to the point.
Yes, sir.
And especially just to focus on the newcomer, KINUTHIA. Is it Benson or yes?
Ben KINUTHIA. I don't know whether it's Bernard or Benson.
Ben KINUTHIA fanya mambo.
Anasema Ben KINUTHIA fanya mambo.
Kabisa. Well, I think one of the things we need to debunk is this whole idea of GDP growing and all that. And of course, due to our ground to be different. And I just want to refer Ben KINUTHIA to something we call Human Development Index. Actually, when we talk about GDP, if you are to just Google the top 10 countries in terms of GDP, you will see US, you will see China, you will see guys like Italy
and Germany.
But it will surprise you that if you look at the Human Development Index, which really now goes to the ground, what are the real issues on the ground, like life expectancy, like how many kids are going to school and completing school, basically looking at, daily living. You realize those top 10 countries, only Germany is among the top 10. And you go to guys like Norway, Ireland, Switzerland, who are now ranking. Because for them, for example, if you look at Norway, they're as the number one country in terms of Human Development Index, they score well, on the ground. What is happening on the ground? Are children going to school? Is the quality of education good? Is the quality of health good? And another very key component, what is the gross national income? yes, we are producing, or rather, yes, there is productivity, but how much are we generating? So you find that Norway also scores number one in that, because in terms of their GDP, yes, there is production happening in the country, but in terms of what also income being generated by the nationals, not from outside debt, not from external forces, by the nationals themselves.
Certainly not from borrowing also.
Yes, it's not from borrowing, because when you talk about GDP in Kenya, for example, let's look at a project like SGR, $3 billion into the economy. But how much of that $3 billion is being produced? What is the national income by the nationals themselves? That should now come to a place whereby it almost either equalizes, or we can say in the next 5 years we will recover this $3 billion. So we need to debunk that myth. And EKURU, I think, thank you for just hosting before Gerard came. Gerard, naona kazi utapoteza kazi.
Anaitwa building capacity.
But EKURU, maybe, and also with Benson, maybe you can educate us, because in 2019, when it comes now to public debt management, the ceiling was raised from whatever it was to 6 trillion.
Now they have even pushed it to 9 trillion, actually.
Now it has been pushed to 9 trillion. And so the question we need to begin to ask is, why is there this element of arbitrary raising that ceiling just because we want to borrow more? Because as we speak, the expressway, which was budgeted, I think, at, is it 22 billion, is now going to cost around, I don't know, 68 billion. I don't have my figures right, but it looks like it has gone up by 3 times. Just like it happened to SGR, from 220 billion to a whole 350 billion. And when you look at that, there's that element of accommodating maybe the rent seekers, the guys who get 3% or 5% when it comes to just, borrowing, because there's a lot of money being made by private individuals, even in these loans. And we need to look at our national public debt management and, we tighten. I don't know how to tighten it, because if today we are saying let's move it from whatever figure to 6 trillion, tomorrow to 9 trillion. I don't know now.
They're even suggesting to move it to 12 trillion now.
Can you imagine? So 3 trillion, what does that 3 trillion mean? Even to the local money. It means we're going to incur another $30 billion in debt. Not 30 billion, I think $3 billion in debt. Actually, it is $30 billion in debt. And the question we need to ask ourselves is, what is the corresponding income that the country is generating to give us the validity or to validate now that kind of borrowing? Because that's how other economies look at it.
It's actually, in a nutshell, actually, if the business is not break even, I mean, it's a bad business. It should close shop.
Exactly. So anyway, that's my comment, and we need to debunk that thing of GDP. I think, the state has really, groomed their guys very well. I saw the other day, was it yesterday? My good friend Mark Bichati came there and almost overwhelmed Ojwang with facts, of course. Numbers. But now, with numbers...
But you almost killed Bichati, man. Bichati has not recovered today. But
let me... No, he's my friend. In fact, I'll call him to congratulate him. But you see, it is good to spin, but I always say a good spinner must also be able to spin on the truth. And for us as a country, let us not forget that when we are saying that we need to borrow an extra maybe $3 billion, let us know that there is somebody, an SME, let me just talk about somebody who is running a kiosk, who is not even able to borrow, to walk to KCB or to Cooperative Bank and borrow on the basis of their kiosk. As a country, yes, you are able to borrow to IMF. IMF can give you nice figures, can give you a good story.
The sad thing about us, and you are right, we should see a translation of this 3 billion or trillion or whatever money into the economy. There has to be a corresponding benefit. You see, it's like I'm borrowing money from Bitok, nilipe deni ya KINUTHIA. naomba kutoka Kinuthia nilipe deni ya Bitok. That's really just
and you're not using it to generate
and you're not generating anything.
Okay. All right, let's give Benson. Since Benson is always under fire. Benson.
It's actually Benedict, but just call me Kinuthia.
Okay.
It's easy.
Ben, okay. Kinuthia.
Now, I think the bulk of the pressure is standing on this side, and I'm happy to be on this receiving side. First and foremost, I need to make it very clear that most of the time when I sit in a TV show, I come on my own account, my own time, my own money, my own fuel. I don't get anything from this government, so I don't defend them. But it's good to speak for the government I voted for, because I voted then believing that they would do the things that I had voted them.
So you believe they did not do it?
Yes. Now, no. Those are your words.
It's very interesting. When he said I voted believing they would.
Let me tell you. You know, we voted for a government of two that later became a government of one, and then so many other things have happened.
It's a big bedroom.
It's a big bedroom, Nairobi. But having said that, there are a few things that I would want to say. Number one, is someone asked me about filing a complaint against judges. My answer is very straightforward, very simple.
Before you get to answer, our guy is still on the line. I don't know if you have any remarks so that when you're answering, we answer all of them. Boss, you still have any remarks before you leave?
No. My final remark is just to say that, just to emphasize that even if we are trying to spin for the government, which is okay, but let us remember that we are in a country whereby the reality on the ground
is different,
must be matched by what we are trying to spin around.
Every good
spinner always spins on the truth, even a propagandist.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Asante sana. Thank you so much. Bunge la mwananchi bado iko wazi 07798010 au 0779801010. Unaweza piga simu iweze kuchangia kwa zile dakika ambazo tumeweza kubakisha au 0779801010. You can call in so that we can have a conversation together. Bunge la mwananchi iko wazi, nambari ni 07798010 0779800010. Haya, 0779801010. Haya, Benedict.
Okay, awesome. Now, this is what I wanted to come to. Number one, someone talked about the complaints against judges, and I will tell you why I haven't done it. There is no single judge who is being interviewed now for the JSC position who does not have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 complaints against them that have been filed at JSC and have been lying there. They have been waiting for an opportunity like this to use it. So I know if I go and file any complaint against any judge, it's going to lie in a file somewhere. Nothing is going to happen about it until maybe that judge offers themselves for something, or there's a big issue, and then that's when that thing arises. I can tell you, I don't think there's a sitting judge right now who does not have it. I don't think there's one who does, and that's why I keep complaining about the judiciary, because JSC is part of them, and JSC has been receiving so many complaints against judges. We only get to know there was a complaint against a judge in most occasions when they are looking for a higher office or something of that kind. Secondly, someone contradicted himself when he talked about the Human Development Index, and he talked of Germany, Norway, Ireland as the countries where the Human Development Index is very high. And he went ahead to say Human Development Index is good schools, good roads, good hospitals, and so on and so forth. And then the question becomes, in a nation like ours that Kibaki took over when we had almost nothing, basically for us to get to the point where Human Development Index is good, we need a good school. It's barely not existent. In fact, CDF right now is doing a lot in trying to bring our schools up to standard. We need good hospitals. We need access to justice. We need so many things. I saw one of the people who was vying for the CJ position speak of the average number of kilometers you need to cover is about 175 to access justice. And they are working to reduce that to 100, which is still quite a high number of kilometers. So on average, if you take the country, that's what she spoke about. So you cannot have a Human Development Index, unfortunately, without capital injection. Now, there are two ways to inject capital into the economy. The first one is you either tax the people properly so that you have enough money to build for them hospitals. The people may not bear that burden. The second one is to borrow locally. If you do that, then you take away money that others would have gone to Equity and Cooperative and KCB and any other bank to borrow, or Jamibora Bank for that matter, that would help them develop their business. And the last one is you look for money externally, which you then come and pump into this economy and help to try and build hospitals and schools and roads and so on and so on. The fact that this money is being stolen is something that even the president has accepted. And he has come and said, oh, we are changing the prosecutorial arm, we are changing the investigation arm, and so on and so forth. It is us to ask ourselves, what contribution are we making in the fight against corruption from where we sit? Or are we merely pointing fingers and saying, so-and-so is not doing this, so-and-so is not doing this? The bulk of this money that has come into this country...
Jump in, Wakili Kidogo.
Yes.
As you also jump in, he's talked about the president accepting and saying he's going to... There's something I noticed over the weekend.
Yeah.
We are under lockdown, 5 counties.
Yes.
And surprisingly, the president was hosting guys from Garissa.
Yeah.
In the State House.
Yes.
They are not essential service providers, or do they pass? Because when you talk about lawlessness is not it's an habit that you exhibit. And the fact it becomes very difficult for even normal Kenyans to pick up the to obey the law. Anyway, pick it up.
I'm gonna contribute to KINUTHIA's conversation. Let's be very realistic. Like I keep on saying, let's begin to see examples from the people in charge of the country at the moment, and that is the executive. It's wrong to say or to put an idea out there that assumes that all Kenyans steal from the state. Actually, no. Ordinary Kenyan does not steal from government. When, for example, Kavura said that she walked into a bank and walked away with 40 million, surely she was facilitated. How do I go as a EKURU or AUKOT go and steal money from NYS accounts or KEMS account? Somebody in government has facilitated that theft. They are just being used as a conduit. So I think, let's be very frank. It's not fair to say that, Kenyans are stealing from the state. Actually, it's the state stealing from us, Kenyans, because they are the custodians of our money. They are not using our taxes properly. You see, to tax me is fine. Like I gave you the example of my friend who is a Swede national. They are taxed almost 60 or 70%, but they get everything for free. Him is assured his children will go to school, to university, they'll get Medicare. They don't have to worry about such things. They will even, when they retire, they'll be getting a pension. Today in Kenya, if you retire, you are just dying. Actually, you should be looking for a grave. That's why most people, when they retire, they just go and die in the village. There's nothing like social security. And I think for me, don't underplay the need for human development index, because that's what measures the success of any country.
I think we don't get each other right. When I say that the human development index cannot be built in a country. For example, human development index is basically you have a good school, you have a good hospital, you cannot have that without investing money into it. You cannot wake up and find a school. And unfortunately, and this is
but
a
what is our
catch-22.
reality, KINUTHIA?
No, our reality
yes.
is that these schools have not been there. But if you come, for example, to Dagoretti, and I'm not giving credit to my MP for nothing, we can see a sprouting number of schools. And CDF has done marvelously in increasing the amount of educational spaces that are available for our young people. So for us to get to the point where we have human development capital, we need to get to the point where we are actually spending money to build it. Number 2, income. The biggest challenge we have in this country, and I think that's what we should be focusing our energy on, is that for every shilling a Kenyan earns, they spend much more of that money in China. When I was in high school, in actually standard 7, I remember for art and craft project, I made a mwiko. Now we are importing a mwiko from China. So what we need to do now, even as we think of industries and so many things, I was looking at the deputy president the other day talking of empowering hustlers, and I was thinking, I wish these people had come up with a bill, like you can even call it a hustler empowerment bill, so that we start finding of ways to ban the importation of those things that Kenya can actually make, a handkerchief, underwear, and so on.
Well, that should be done by the government. You seem to be defending
He's in the government. Is he not in the government?
I'm saying,
that's why I'm coming to.
You should be saying, for example, why should we even be importing, for example, toothpicks? When we have a lot of forests in Kenya.
Actually, bamboo. We export bamboo and then we import it as toothpick.
I think let's agree, KINUTHIA. I think we have a failed government. Let's agree that we have a failed government. We have a failed leadership, both from parliamentarians and see like what Dennis was hinting at. This idea of constitutionalism and all that. I just wanted to take this debate back to this question of the constitution. What is really a constitution? It's basically simple rules of governance, ways in which we can govern ourselves, the creation of power between departments and all that. But even if you wrote yourself the most beautiful constitution in the world, Bitok, and KINUTHIA will know this as our Kili, it may not even be worth the paper it's written on if we do not breathe life to it. if we don't live by its aspiration. And one of those aspirations that we are killing, for example, is the principles of governance spelled out in Article 10. Now, when we go borrowing willy-nilly from everybody without involving the public, without public participation, without our parliament, vetting that debt, then we are even destroying this very, very constitution. And the number one driver of destroying the constitution is the executive, because they're supposed to be the people who enforce laws, especially laws like the constitution that come from the people themselves. Forget about the laws that come from parliament. It's the executive that's supposed to enforce those laws. But we see an executive that is actually breaking every rule in the book, disrespect for the constitution. So even this question of borrowing should be regulated. And part of that regulation of borrowing has to do with many things. I mean, again, I'm not an economist, but I can imagine that if I'm borrowing, na maji imezidi unga, I can go back and renegotiate for a longer repayment term. This for me, I think what economists also will advise.
But the thing is, we renegotiated China the other day because they're supposed to start paying. We renegotiated the payment term somehow. But again, we renegotiated, then we went to borrow a loan from another person to Shylock. Sasa tumemaliza banks to make Shylock. So I mean, well, we could have all these discussions about debts and all the other decisions that are being made by government, but clearly it looks like the government itself is not really willing to listen. So two things which I don't know if you guys talked about. One, ni mambo ya now Bbi is going to parliament. There has been a conversation, there have been conflict on the issues of public participation, which is key. We've been about it now. Wait the space of the mwananchi in that discussion as we head to parliament. And the second thing is, there's something that Chitembo raised. I don't know if you addressed that about making rulings on teenage pregnancies, and that with a guy probably there's a case of a 14. Yes. 14-year-old guy met a 14-year-old chick pregnant. They were age mates, and now the case is on him. They were both children. How do we argue that case? And then also in a case where you're having what he was raising, like, okay, this guy has made this woman pregnant, it is a responsibility that's going to come a child. So do you put this guy in prison, or do you give an opportunity to be there for the child, or for the mother as well, for the woman who is saying, okay, this is my husband that you're jailing, right? So there seems to be some conflict there. But I want us to start with Bbi. It's going into parliament. And Kimunya has come out. I don't know if you listened to Kimunya. I don't know if you heard Kimunya.
I didn't listen.
I
didn't listen.
Lazima ikitu lazima ipite, tupende tusipende. It has to go through, with or without a bill.
We explained that, I think, last week again, or was it the other week, that you cannot sidestep public participation in the making of a constitution. Because if you look at Article 1 of the Constitution of Kenya, it says that all sovereign authority and power
belongs to the people,
vests in the people. So constitution is a social contract between the people and the state apparatus. The judiciary, parliament, executive, and all that. So it's a social contract, and it says right there in the very, very constitution. So when, for example, you are seeking to amend this constitution, and you see, it depends what aspects of this constitution that are being amended that require a referendum. For example, Article 255 has explained those instances. For example, if you're going to affect the structure of government or the structure of parliament, because they are proposing, for example, to increase parliament, that's affecting the structure of parliament. That is a question for referendum. It requires a referendum. For example, maybe to alter the boundaries or administrative units. Again, it's a question of referendum. So Kimunya is ignorant. He is just being politically expedient. And again, this is the level of arrogance we see in this country. People who think that because they are in government or they are surrogates of those in government, they can just talk carelessly the way they want. And that's an unfortunate thing, the impunity in this country. So when we talk about impunity in Kenya, it really starts with the executive and people in government, parliamentarians themselves. You see, someone like Kimunya is speaking carelessly and recklessly because he does not understand his role as a parliamentarian. His role are only three in the constitution: to represent the people of Kipipiri who elected him. And by extension, also the people of Kenya, to legislate, pass laws, about, and to hold their executive accountable or to account. So when a member of parliament speaks like that, basically he has even demonstrated disrespect for his own constituents. And that's the unfortunate, culture now that's emerging in Kenya. And maybe that's why Dennis was saying earlier, yes, we have a constitution, but we don't have constitutionalism. Constitution without constitutionalism, basically meaning the culture of living in the constitution,
It's not there.
living in the aspirations of that document. It's not there. Because you can see, even judiciary makes an order that swear these judges, the president refuses. Justice Maraga invokes, emeritus, he invokes his constitutional duty, obligation, and advises the president to dissolve parliament. The president refuses. So yes, from the top, you can say we don't have constitutionalism, but that does not take away there was obligation of Kenyans to breathe life into their constitution, which is why I think I like the tackle on KINUTHIA that you must petition as a lawyer against, for example, that bill. You'll be exercising your constitutional right. So the executive, the leadership can ignore the constitution, but I think the people should not ignore, because this document essentially came from the people of Kenya. And I remember when we went around this country 2009 to 2010 collecting views, we collected the views of Kenyans, including that of the politicians. So I would say, let us not surrender our constitution, our country, because of a few individuals who are just being belligerent and ignorant about it.
What are your thoughts, Ben?
I think I'll merge that with two things. The first one is on the culpability of the judiciary. And this, in law, there's something called the man on the bus. When you want to know whether something is big or bad or good or small, you ask the opinion of the man on a Pangani bus or a Kibera bus. And if you ask Kenyans right here on the streets, is our judiciary corrupt? And they'll tell you, we saw a video of someone being shot, and then we saw the person who shot him walking on the streets. So the Kenyans have already made their judgment that the judiciary is corrupt. It would be wrong for us to come and sanitize here and say that they are not corrupt.
But the same question can be asked also about the executive.
I have said so.
Yes?
I have said
about,
so.
A great deal of people,
a great deal of people in the executive are very corrupt. Now, on the BBI, let's start from saying that the intentions were very good. And the way it began,
What were the intentions?
Remember we had almost two countries living in one. You're forgetting just the other day people had switched SIM cards.
But EKURU was president. He's here. He never gave us a third country.
Something you need to understand.
He never helped out
Something
Turkana.
you need to understand. At that point in time, whether we like it or not, we had people who were wearing T-shirts called Resist and changing SIM cards and doing all sorts.
That's just an political expression.
Yes.
Doesn't mean we are having a different country.
No. Things were not moving on well. We have to accept.
Okay,
the country was not where it was supposed to be.
That.
And it was not where it is right now. Now, the spirit then was very good. The first 9-point agenda was perfect. Unfortunately, sometimes along a good process, some people can come and hijack and do things the wrong way. If Kimunya comes and speaks and says things that do not resonate with trying to bring together a united Kenya that agrees together on how to resolve election disputes in future and so many things, let us not take that to be the spirit of BBI.
Okay.
I think initially the spirit of BBI was to look for those Kenyans who feel disenfranchised from wherever they are, and to bring everybody on board. And let us always keep reminding ourselves that sometimes even when you have a good intention, there could come forces of people who just are doing their job because it is their job, but they are not doing it in the spirit of how it's supposed to be done. So we need to keep correcting such leaders. If Junet Mohammed or if Dennis Wawero or if any of those people leading the BBI process does make a mistake, let us never forget the spirit behind BBI. The spirit behind BBI was, as much as possible, if we can, let us bring AUKOT, let us bring DIDA, let us bring everybody together, let us have one table and let us feel as Kenyans. And then, unfortunately, some people, of course, have sneaked in their interests. I want a constituency in my place because I could not garner enough votes, so I want to hive it off so that it looks like a place I can... all those interests usually come when you're trying to do a good process. But let us not forget the spirit behind BBI. It was a good decision. It was a good spirit. Only that there are few people who have hijacked it and probably brought in things that should not.
Who are the few people working?
Now, as I said, you remember when Kenya was first writing her constitution, I was lucky. At the age of 21, I sat at Bombers 1, 2, and 3 as an observer on behalf of the youth. And you look at a constituency like in Vihiga, where I think that time there was a guy who was trying to vie there constantly and it was not working. And a constituency was hived off that looked the shape of where he got more votes and so on and so forth. But this was a constitutional making process. And you have had, and so many times we sit like trying to make something for the nation, but people will come with their own interests. It's been a big thing. I have not started BBI steering committee meetings, I can't tell you, but I can tell you for sure when you read this document, you will see some things that are not necessarily in national interest. They were sneaked in by people who carried their own interest into the BBI document. But then again, in the spirit of trying to make every Kenyan work together, you find yourself accommodating some of these things so that you're able to move forward.
But you are still pushing this.
Let me tell you a bit of.
You had a tackle.
Yes, BBI is alive from the very beginning, and I think any sensible Kenyan, any educated Kenyan should be able to say that without flinching. It's alive because it started on the corn game that Kenya was divided. People were fighting. I participated in the 2017 general election. I did not see Kenyans fighting, but I saw individuals, and I know a few individuals who did not make it into government, who are now causing chaos to create the impression that Kenya is fighting. Kenyans were not fighting, you know. Then they came up with the idea of BBI, what they are calling shared prosperity. Again, another lie. You see, if today, if 47 Kenyans all held the president at ransom and say we have got shared prosperity with you, and therefore now let's start a BBI. You know, I think for me that's part of the lie. And what I would like our Kilia to take home today is why BBI is a lie. Because it started on the premise that let's find what ails Kenya. What ails Kenya is not in people being included in government or in a shared government. In fact, we even tried the Nusumukate in 2007 up to 2013. What did it achieve for us? You know, in fact, the truth for the matter, Wakili, and if you are all honest and we are in this country, BBI has divided this country more than united it. And that's why, for me, I think it should be disbanded. Because BBI is avoiding some of the findings about the problems that ail this country. Let's even start with the question of land. Why is the Ndungu Commission gathering dust? Because it looked at matters of irregularity and illegality on the allocation of land in this country. Why is it gathering dust? The Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission report identified the things that are wrong in this country. Why is that report not being implemented? The Akumi Commission report, the Kriegler report on matters election, the Philip Waki report on post-election violence. All those reports establish what ails this country. You know, so I think let's stop wasting Kenyan taxpayers' money. Kenyans, I think, need vaccines now. They need masks. They need those schools to be built. And I agree with you, we need to pump more money. We build schools in every ward in this country. BBI is nonsense and it's actually a waste of time.
Okay. Yeah. Alright, wacha nisome comments. Kuna watu walikuwa wanauliza kuhusu punguza mzigo. Punguza mzigo. Daktari EKURU amesema punguza mzigo imerudi. Sasa sijui kama akituhamisha kwa BBI tunarudi tena kwa punguza. Tupunguze kama unataka kuendorse punguza mzigo ni www.punguzamizigo punguza mizigo ndo mizigo punguzamizigo.org www.punguzamizigo.org. Kuna watu walikuwa wanaulizia pale, so link iko pale. Weka punguzamizigo.org www.punguzamizigo.org. John Jagi KINUTHIA can be sincere. You'll use 1,000 bob to reach Meritini, then use another 200 to 400 bob to reach Mombasa, then another 200 bob to your destination, be it Tudor, White Sands. Please take your PR back to your government
then I'll
office.
have saved 4 hours on the road. I'll have saved 4 hours on the road. Please take your PR back to your government office. Kenyans are hungry and they are talking of driving on an expansive Ngong Road. Robert Kobe says, Martin Hell, an economy encompasses all activity related to production, consumption and trade of goods and services in an area. What is that? Ni swali ameuliza. Abbas Njuguna, not forgetting government is on houses of business demolitions, crackdowns and with the current pandemic. Wow. The government actually is kicking people out of their own homes. Manyumba zinabomolewa and you're talking about staying at home. Jared Kimeto anasema general economy is in ICU. We need solutions. Thank you so much, Jared Kimeto, for tuning in this morning. And Joan Jagi, huyu ni PR tupu. James Mwenda says, why are we obsessed with Tanzania and Uganda SGR? These are plans that have been on paper for decades and have not really taken off. Kenya went ahead, completed this SGR, which is now fully in service. Just for the records, Tanzania, the SGR tayari ya Tanzania iko chini, imedungwa chuma. Kusimba Desama sema this wakili state sympathizer. Basi Njuguna, people are not working free because of the judiciary. The thing is, statements and investigations are deliberately twisted, knowing very well they will not succeed in court. Al Josh Bin Kun says this wakili aka KINUTHIA has underperformed. Muna kanyaga wageni wangu. Why are you tackling my guest? Atarudi kweli KINUTHIA.
Haya, James Mwenda anasema I knew Kinuthia when he was selling water before he went to law school. It looks like he went to study psychophancy. Are you selling water, Kinuthia?
Yes. I had a water company.
Hata wale walienda kusomea psychophancy.
Ni watu wa Nairobi wote ni cartels. Kinuthia tunapika mwenye cartel.
But this was the guy who was defending him. He has suddenly turned on him. Anyway. Okay, Bore Clement says Wakili is not being realistic. The executive is to be blamed. Even the problems judiciary is going through at the moment is because of the executive. Abbas Njuguna, they are only interested in the 2022 presidential elections petition, nothing else. Shazi Jeb says, Moiben Kenyewe, asante sana Shazi for watching it from Moiben, I really appreciate. Martina Haranami, Robert Kobe, as much as I agree with you, the fact that transport is what aids it, I'm not going to clap for the inefficiencies in our systems. We're losing our prime port to Tanzania. The SDR is returning billions in losses. Had it been made to route Busia, it'd be positive. The KQ is no longer a pride of Africa, but a pride of failure. Do you remember pipeline? Swale, Moliza Robert Kobe. Dennis Ndumbi, the police isn't independent because there's no constitutionalism. The tragedy is that critical doctrines and the sanctity of the constitution has been suspended and desecrated. As Wakili Kinuthia is doing those fiber ads, surely let him apply himself to this truth. Okay. John W. Karaoke, it's a candid conversation, but the reality is that the executive should be a good example in also obeying the court orders. There are hundreds of orders that government and its officials haven't obeyed. Abbas Njuguna, in Kenya today, a normal Kenyan would run away if he or she sees a policeman because chances of an offense being invented are very, very high. Okay. Robert Kobe says, I wish this thinking can be in tandem with our voting patterns. Okay. Kinuthia, okay, Kwaita says, this guy only oscillates from Gong to his office. He doesn't understand how to hustle. Sama kana loser maji, so kama ni hustler. Dennis Ndumi asema, it doesn't matter how much you restructure the debt. The leadership is constant. You'll be opening another door for more looting and more mismanagement. Kusimba the Sam says, Kinuthia is on Murathe payroll. Aya, sijui sasa. Patrick Msavi, hata tuko na njaa sana. Leo ni Friday. Patrick Safi Njuguna nasema I'm tuned in. Asante sana Francis Kidero na Kuru Kivumbini, getting you loud and clear. Thank you so much. Joel Rama, Amikas Kinuthia has some great points, but he should start with premise of acknowledging the challenges we have with the current government system, which includes the parliament, executive, judiciary, and its citizenry. David Kitur tuned in from Kapsaba. Thank you so much. Joel Rama, Kinuthia is right. The country was a dangerous state, and that is wakati wa uchaguzi. Kipkali Arab Koske tuned in from Rainbow Rural Resort. I'm led by Redini. Asante sana Kipkali Arab Koske. Joel Rama, Gerald ambia AUKOT the selection on word, he needs to add an option of not available or no word. Haya, kwa mambo ya punguza mzigo. I hope you're taking up these suggestions.
We are getting comments.
Okay. Na uli stabilize system. Just kuile tulisema watu wa sign wakasign sana mpaka ikaanguka.
Kweli?
Kwa walikuwa wanalamika wanasema.
Watu wana sign.
Entertainment from a boring weekend.
Okay, guys, I want to give you an opportunity to give you a tackle of the day as we wind up before court Texas or before Ben Texas somewhere to kula na dipset.
Kaflo TV.
Lakini sasa pia Murathe hana kakitu. Inaweza kuwa amempa nini Ben kama anajitetea ni hustler. Anasema mboka ni mboka.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think Kenyans, for those people who know me, I've been called Fanya Mambo Kinuthia because
unafanya mambo.
Nimefanya mambo. I'm one of the biggest hustlers that this Nairobi has known. I have really come from far. Na sijafika bado naendelea. Napambana. And I look forward to the day when I'll also nitafika kwenye wanasema kuomoka. But having said that, I'd like to say this. Let us not be a helpless nation. Much as out there, I'm a motivational
But Kinuthia bana, you have said you cannot go and file against the petition
we are at a point
courts
where
because
everybody is speaking as though there is nothing else that can be done to salvage this country. In fact, I had one guy in the States speaking as if Kenya is completely done and there's not going to be Kenya tomorrow. We can still bequeath a very beautiful nation to our children tomorrow. We just need to stand from where we are and look at what this nation needs and what level little contribution we can make. 2022 is a golden opportunity for us to start by bequeathing unto this nation good leaders. We may have made mistakes in the past. I look at the bulk of the people I voted. I cast 6 ballots. Out of this, I think 75% of them I regret. So we need to get to the point where we say in 2022, I will vote with my mind and my heart in it. I will pray about it. I will make a choice of a good leader, because the bulk of the problem we have today is because most of us voted for the wrong leaders. And if we vote in the right people, starting from the MCA all the way to the president, we shall have taken care of about 80% of the problems we have. Because when you have a good leader, it doesn't matter which constitution they have. If you have a good leader, they can do anything with that. I mean, you saw what Kibaki did. He had the same constitution that Moi had. He would have chosen to lead us the Moi way, but he led us the Kibaki way. Let us choose people who will not care whether we have a good constitution or a bad constitution, but will lead this country in the right direction because they love this country.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm actually surprised that you have not used President Uhuru Kenyatta as an example. You've chosen Kibaki. Anyway,
Facts.
No, because of the constitution. I was just talking about
Okay.
there was no need to change the constitution for him. With the constitution as it was then, he still governed us.
Do you think Uhuru has done well the new constitution?
I think Uhuru has done well. In the light of the circumstances he's in, and when you look at what is happening globally and in the region, Uhuru has done well. He may not be the most perfect president that Kenya will ever have, but in the circumstances of the times and in what is happening today, I don't think any of the other noisemakers would have done any better than him.
Okay.
Uhuru has not done very well for this country. First of all, he has put out a very huge national debt that's now going to about 8 trillion. We don't even know the economic plans in place to try and manage this debt or recover from this debt. So I think this government is probably the worst in the history of Kenya from 2013. And people like KINUTHIA, I think, have made mistakes. They voted for this government 3 times. So which means they are also to blame. Wamezidi kutuongezea mizigo. Wanataka kutuongezea mizigo ingine inaitwa Bbi. But anyway, be that as it may, I mean, and I respect the opinion of everyone, including that of my learned colleague KINUTHIA. I think for me, I'll just say to Kenyans, and also this is also to join KINUTHIA in saying that we have a great country. We should all endeavor to participate in making this country better. The problem I see with us Kenyans is that we have surrendered this country to a tiny minority of individuals who think that it's only them who can determine the future of this country. What I'd like to remind us Kenyans is that these individuals are just a minority. There are very few. The country belongs to all of us in equal measure. So I think even as we look towards 2022, let's remember each one of us has a responsibility to make Kenya a better country for ourselves, for our children, and their children. And that, I think, is responsibility. So let's be responsible by participating proactively in making Kenya a better country.
Okay.
And of course, lastly, please stay safe, wear your mask, sanitize. Corona is real.
Corona is real. Kufagia. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming in. And by the way, you have an amazing country. And Kenyans have a potential of being great patriots. You can remember even with the failed systems of Nyayo, there was some serious sense of patriotism that you're seeing even though you're experiencing now in Tanzania. Kenyans can be patriotic. Lakini uweze kuwa patriotic kama njaa ipo inakupiga. So you have a great nation, Kenyans, and I think we owe it to our children to make it a better place, to build it so that at least we ensure that we bequeath our children a better nation as we inherit it. So I also apologize once again for coming in late today, but I have realized that we have capacity and we'll continue building that capacity.
I thought KINUTHIA said
to ensure
that Ngong Road is a smooth road. How could you have an accident? How could you have a puncture?
Bwana, that's smooth road, bwana. Mbele be a tire burst. Not even a puncture, tire burst.
Tire burst.
I had a serious tire burst. Yeah. Yeah. So
That's
we need to understand kama kwa hiyo loan kulikuwa na msumari ndani.
China.
Taya bwana ni taya serious bwana, acha maneno. Taya ni actually is it a Firestone kind? I think it's a Firestone. Anyway, thank you so much class who have been joining in. Abbas Njuguna says he has done well. All Kenyans agree. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Joy Kalisa tuned in from Kithurai. From Bere where AUKOT got most force. Joel Yegon Kivu Akili KINUTHIA some cold water. The amke looks like he's still asleep. There is like him driving on expansive Ngong Road. and the hustlers are walking on the rocky and narrow path of anger and misery. Haya, asante sana kwa kuweza kututazama na watakia weekend njema. Tuonane tena Jumatatu kwenye Common Sense Edition na kina Eric Mwangi na Captain Collins Wanderi ili tuweze kuzungumzia mambo ya ela na maisha. Until then, enjoy your weekend and take care. We hope you stumble on something with our good friend KINUTHIA today. I hope it's going to be a good day. Oh Lord, I hope this day is good. Take care, guys. Enjoy your weekend. Bye bye. This is the second and the tackle ends now. We love you. Take care.